Inflation at double digits, interest rates at a 15-year high, and banks closing left, right and centre. Is this the end of buy-to-let property? I love a bit of clickbait drama that the article has put out there. Let's break down some of the reality of what I've just gone through. So let's start with inflation. Yes, inflation is at something like 10.2% officially, and that is not ideal. So let me break down first of all, what is inflation? What does it mean? Why are we in this situation? And what are we doing about it? So inflation is simply the devaluation of money. So if you've got a pound today and inflation's at 3%, then in a year's time, whatever you could buy with this pound is now going to be £1.03, a 3% increase. So inflation is the price going up. Normally, it's when demand for things is far outweighing the supply of things. And so the way that producers of assets, services, manufacturing, they increase the prices so that demand is more in line with the supply that's there. And naturally, as prices go up, the demand has to come down because not as many people can afford it. Okay, so we understand what it is now. Why has it really happened and why is it so high? Bear in mind, the Bank of England target rate is just 2%. We are over 5 times that number, and it's because of COVID. So you might be thinking, well, 3-month lockdown, how can it possibly still have an impact? Think about riding a bike. If you are traveling at 20 miles an hour and then you suddenly stop and then you go, right, you're at a dead stop, now go again. You don't suddenly go, oh, okay, 20 miles an hour. You sort of build it up. You have to get that pressure. You're moving your body around, getting it moving, and then you build up to the same miles per hour. Now imagine that, not just in your locale, not just your country, but the entire world shut down, most of it anyway, for 3 months plus. For some areas, it was over a year of proper lockdown. Imagine how hard it is to get moving everything going. But people still needed food. People still needed water. People still needed clothes. People still wanted to go out to restaurants. Businesses still needed to make money. People still want to buy property and rent property. People still need housing, but the clocks weren't turning. So what happens is you've got the normal demand and supply, but then through lockdown, supply is going down. You're not facilitating the current demand and demand's going up at the same time. So the gap is getting bigger and bigger. And then suddenly we open up and the demand goes right and puts the pressure on that supply. So it's hitting it down. And the supply chains, i.e. for you to go buy a top from a shop, it got made in a different country, got quality checked in another country, then got sent all around the world to end up on your body. Okay, it's not simply, I want that, and they produce it like that. Okay, so this puts massive pressure. So now we understand why inflation's gone up the way it has and what actually caused it. So then it leads to the next one, interest rates. Interest rates are an all-time high. Not quite, actually. Yes, it's the height of 15 years where we've had historic lows, but if you look even at the 50-year average, we are still below the 50-year average. Number one, not so hypey, right? But why is it happening in the first place? Well, the reason is the Bank of England target is all based around that inflation. And one of the key ways to bring down that inflation is to increase interest rates. The reason for that is not only in property, but the world, businesses, they rely on finance to grow naturally, right? And if the cost of borrowing that finance goes up, everything slows down in terms of demand, and it's a very deliberate way to do it. So the slowdown of the market is very real, and not only is it expected, we have deliberately caused that. The spending on clothes, cinemas, restaurants, whatever it is slowed deliberately. And the way that we do this is by increasing those interest rates. So it's understanding it's not a shock. It's a very deliberate move by the country. And then the newspapers make out like, oh my God, how crazy is this? And it's just, well, it's not crazy. We've got another one on the 11th of May. So if you're watching this before, 11th of May is going to happen again, probably increase. My guess is 0.25%. If it's after this, you'll see if I'm right. And yet, watch the headlines. If it is increased by 0.25%, watch the headlines. Oh my God, we're at a 15-year high. Guarantee you will see that everywhere. So that's number two. Now, what about the banks? Is that going to crush everything? Silicon Valley Bank, pop. Another one, pop. Well, no, actually. And again, the headlines are like, this is the start of the end. It's all going to be a big depression. Look at the customers. If you look at the average bank where the average person has below £1,000 invested, that is a very low risk bank. Nothing can really go wrong. Whereas Silicon Valley Bank, the average person has over $500,000 in there. That is not a normal bank. Entrepreneurs, crypto investors. And so when all of that crashed and it all went down and SVB was banking against interest rates staying low and it didn't work out for them, it's very easy to go pop. It was ridiculous risk they were taking considering the profile, but they do not represent the average person like you and me. So is it the start of the end? No, absolutely not. So before going through what I actually think is going to happen, I just really wanted to dispel that because there's all this bullshit in the media where they've got all the motivation in the world to sell newspapers. And you know what? Going, hey, interest rates have gone up 0.25%. It's nothing to worry about. Look at the 50-year average. It's actually completely normal. And by the way, the reason the country's deliberately doing this is to combat this inflation. Basic economics, okay? Supply and demand. That doesn't sell papers, okay? They are selling fear because that's what you and me buy into. So what is the reality? So first of all, I always like to say, if in doubt, zoom out. And what I mean by that is look at the last 50 years, and this would be a really good exercise. Look at what would be the best times to buy. I mean, like the market's just crashed and we want to buy right at the bottom. That would be the best time to buy, right? Now go back on Google, your local documentaries, and look at the newspapers and what they were saying at the time. I can guarantee every single best year that you pick in the last 50 years, newspapers will be going, is it about to go boom? Are we about to drop another 10%? We're about to go into a state of depression. All the shit that you see all the time going around. And the reason why I want you to look at that is you will understand that this is what the news does. The news is not there to inform you. It's there to misinform you. And they're willing to do pretty much anything just to sell another paper. It's bullshit. Number two, instead of listening to the guy and girl down the pub that knows everything about fuck all, why don't we actually look at the big players? I'm talking about Aviva, who's just launched a initial funding of 1.5 billion. What are they doing? Insurance company into real estate. Let's look at Legal & General. Right now in South Bank, which is Leeds South Bank Development, the second largest residential development in Europe ever, and it is owned entirely by Legal & General. That's 350 football pitches. What about Lloyds Bank, where they have put together a syndicate of 100 billion pounds to invest in this? And by the way, when all these news articles are coming out, they've also just released that over the next decade, they are looking to acquire 50,000 houses. 50,000 houses, which would make them the largest UK residential landlord. So why are we getting panicked about the short-term fluctuations when you've got people like that, the big players that are funding, by the way, all of the mortgages? Some of the richest people in the world work in those banks, some of the most intelligent people in the world, and they are buying. But no. We read a newspaper article by the Daily Mirror about how it's all going to collapse around us, and that's the information we want to focus on. It's really not all doom and gloom. So, what's the reality of this year? The reality is it's very likely to have a correction. It is. Okay, it's likely to go down slightly. However, we are talking by the end of 2023 between 3 and 8% dependent on areas. And that just comes from getting the right areas. And by the way, That's not a bad thing. A correction in the market is required from time to time, and it's for you to realize that this is an opportunity to strike and take advantage of the opportunities. And yes, sometimes that can be about getting a discount, but for me, it's about access to the best areas. So look, should we be investing in property? Ultimately, that's going to depend on you. If you have 40, 50 grand and you are likely to need access to that quickly, and you are looking to monetize by turning around property quickly and selling it, no, this is probably not a good time for you. However, if you've got 60, 70, 100, couple of hundred grand to invest, and you know that inflation is deteriorating that at 1% a month, and you want to get your money working hard for you, and you are looking over the long term, not the next 6 to 12 months, as you should be in property, then absolutely, this is one of the best times to take advantage of the market. Stop listening to the people going, buy to let, stare, this isn't happening. Honestly, I've been investing for 10 years now. Every single year, people have been telling, and I mean every year, people have been like, stop buying, it's going to collapse, and it's going to collapse. And the problem is, since then, the property market has literally doubled. In some areas, trebled since I bought my first property. And at some point, the market will drop 10%. And I promise you, all of those people go, I told you it was going to drop. It's like, yeah, 10 years later when the market's like that, who cares? So if in doubt, zoom out. If you've got a long term, start buying. You don't wait to buy property. You buy property and wait. Now, hey, some of you will be watching this. You've got the money to invest, but you're terrified of buying in the wrong area, getting the right strategy, and monetizing in the right way. And if that's you, and maybe you want me to build your portfolio for you, put APG in the comments. That stands for Aspire Property Group. Put APG in the comments. I'll send you a link, and you can book in a free one-to-one strategy session where we can understand where you're at, where you want to get to, and if we can help you on that journey. Let me know what you thought of this video. Are you buying into the crazy drama? Are you buying into the sort of long-term outlook? Either way is absolutely fine. Let me know your opinion in the comments. I'll try to reply to as many as possible. If you're new to the channel, you want to find out more about property investing, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Ultimately, I want to produce more videos for you, and I'd love to see you there. So hit the subscribe, and if you did get value, destroy the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.